thank you all for coming tonight. As Gary said, there are a number of apologies because this meeting could be viewed as a tactical or a strategic move. We didn't need 100 people here tonight. It just needs sufficient people to actually go through the Shooters and Fishers Party's established process to make sure that a branch is legitimised, formed, and then can take its place at the table. Now, we have our annual state conference on in October, is it, Peter?
Yeah, 19th.
October 19th, and the objective would be to get this branch recognised and have a couple of delegates admitted to the state conference. You may not have met the deadline for voting rights, but we'll see how we go. We may get you there, and obviously you won't have had time in the process to develop the things that Gary has said should be done by bow hunting representatives in a political party. We do have a number of precedents for doing exactly this. We have a virtual party, the Australian Hunting Network, AHN. They function, and that's right, a branch I should say. They function as a branch of the party. We have a fishing branch of the party, and Peter Johnson here tonight is a chairman of the fishing branch. He's also just the recently elected, to fill a casual vacancy, but elected vice chairman of the party, and we believe Peter will be elected formally to that position at our annual state conference. In fact, we're pretty sure he will, because he's the only the only nominee, yeah. And by that you could understand that political parties, and our political party, they're not run like clubs or associations, they're not run like open fora. We've had a number of attempts by other parties to take over the Shooters and Fishers Party, thankfully a long time ago. We've had a bad experience with a rogue chairman who now runs his own little group of political parties, 4 of them in fact. But we all make mistakes. In fact, it was me that sponsored David Lanehill into the Shooters and Fishers Party, and he ended up as our chairman. We all make mistakes, like I said. So it's not like a club or association where, you know, you've got a range, you go and you get in competition shoots. This is all about ensuring that you get some a methodology to have your issues attended to at the political level. Now, why do you need to have your issues attended to at the political level? Why do you need to have political advocacy at all? As Gary said, the Shooters and Fishers Party was formed in 1992, so we're 21 years old. And prior to the formation of the Shooters, well, what was the Shooters Party in those days, firearms owners and shooting clubs were saying exactly the same thing. Oh, we don't really know. Why, we're apolitical. We're apolitical. And we had the representatives of the Australian Bow Hunting Association in just last week. And they said to us, well, you know, we do want to get involved with you somehow, but we're apolitical. Well, one can understand that from, say, the Australian Clay Target Association, the Australian Pistol Association, small bore, because they are Olympic sports and they suck on the taxpayer teat. They are frightened of losing their money. Not that the federal government gives these bodies much money, but they give them a bit. Now, the Shooters and Fishers Party didn't really hit its straps until we'd actually convinced some of the largest organisations in the state, in particular the SSAA, that their raison d'etre was to provide services for their members, and that they really weren't ever going to get success as a lobby group. And now the reason we say that is because since 1995 John Tingle's been in here, and from the very day he was here, you get to understand that lobby groups and people outside the political arena may well have access to politicians, access to bureaucrats. The access to bureaucrats in the form of, say, a submission on something, for example, more often than not ended up after you'd walked out the door and you'd had your pat on your cup of tea and your pat on the bum in the round filing cabinet. Oh, chuckle, chuckle, chuckle. Handled that lot, gone. I don't think anybody could argue, and certainly the major parties don't argue, that the Shooters and Fishers Party has been one of the phenomenal success stories. I would say in second place to the Greens. They have been the phenomenal success story worldwide. But here in Australia, Shooters and Fishers Party have punched well beyond our weight. We've got a branch now in Western Australia. We almost got a second member elected in Western Australia, 78 votes more, and we would have had the balance of power in Western Australia. We're that uppity and that dangerous and that much of an irritant to governments that Barry O'Farrell did what he did with the Game Council. Nothing to do with the Game Council, nothing to do with the success or otherwise of hunting in state forests or even national parks. It was a political hit. He miscalculated it. For a guy who's supposed to be such a good tactician, I'm surprised that he made such a silly, stupid move. In the first 3 weeks that public land hunting was rescinded, our membership went up over 500 members. Mostly from New South Wales, obviously, but from South Australia, Victoria, Queensland. The Queensland government, or the party, the Liberal National Party in Queensland, at their last state conference resolved that they would structure a legislation program to bring in public land hunting in Queensland. The Victorians, after having sort of tried for several attempts, are now going to have a game management unit set up and funded from licensing fees within their Department of Primary Industries. The Game Council here in New South Wales, as I say, was nothing more than a political hit, but as a piece of legislation and as a structure and a functionality, it was brilliant. It is truly world-leading practice in terms of conservation. You get 20,000, in fact there are 35,000 people who bought licences, paying for the privilege of doing the taxpayer and the government a favour as a collateral benefit. Most hunters don't hunt because they want to kill feral animals. They want to hunt because they're hunters. Fishermen want to fish because they're fishermen. They do it either to catch the fish for the sake of catching the fish or to present themselves and their family with a feed. Hunters are exactly the same. If I had a thought about it, I could have dug through my old files and brought in here a poem I wrote called The Cultural Continuum, which talks about just how long that thread of humanity is when it comes to hunting. There are some brilliant books that have been written about the cultural aspects of hunting. There's some rippers, but anyway, I'll get off the subject. We're here tonight to provide bow hunters, if they wanted, with an opportunity to be able to formulate policy for a political party which will advocate for them, solely for them. In other words, you're not going along to the Liberal Party and saying, will you run our policies up your flagpole with all your other policies on boat people and whatever else. No, you're coming along to the Shooters and Fishers Party, who has many members who are already bow hunters, and saying, yes, we want to be part of the policy process. We want access to you, the parliamentary wing, and we want to be able to put policy on the table that you will adopt and then you will prosecute on behalf of all bow hunters, not just the ones in the branch or the ones that you know. So the first little thing I'd like to do tonight is just ask for a show of hands. Could I ask how many people are already members of the Shooters and Fishers Party in the room? Okay, so a couple of you aren't. One of the prerequisites, of course, of forming a branch, bow hunting branch in the Shooters Fisher Party, is that you pay $30 and you join the party. To get the branch up and running, we will only need 10 members. We don't have 10 members here tonight, not far off it, but what we can do is set the process in train in accordance with the way our constitution's been laid out. So what that means is the first thing we do is we have a meeting. we're having a meeting of like-minded people. We form a steering committee that will then, as quickly as it can, get 10 members of the party and then either electronically or in person have a meeting of those 10 persons and elect a certain given number of positions, they being chairman of the branch, vice chairman of the branch, secretary, treasurer, and up to 6 committee members. Now, when you've only got 10 people, of course, everybody gets a job, but that's not the bad way to do it. Once you've done that, and all of those people are members of the party, you then just contact the secretary. You then say in your contact, we formed a branch of the Shooters and Fishers Party. We would like the state executive or the state committee, state executive it is, to consider admitting us as a branch of the party. I can assure you the answer will be yes. And at our first meeting, the following names were duly elected to the positions below, and you give the secretary the names. In most of our new branches, we generally get you to set up a bank account, and we give you a little bit of seed capital. It won't be much, maybe $1,000 in a bank account. The idea, of course, being that each branch of the party, like the geographic branches, finds a way to fund whatever is necessary for them to do their functions, and that's not a lot of money. You've only really got to just have a couple of meetings a year. A new branch might need 3 or 4 meetings in a period of a month to formulate some policy. Nothing really happens then, and probably won't happen for this branch until October 2014, which would be the next state conference at which you would be admitted. And we would hope during that period of time we would have worked up, when I say we, the party state executive and the branch would have worked up a series of policies, put them in the form of motions to be adopted at the state conference. Your delegates then and observers then attend the state conference here in Sydney. You put the motions of your branch forward, and the party will debate them and hopefully adopt them. If they're sensibly worded policies or amendments to existing policies. It may just be that the word bow hunting is added in here, everywhere, here, there, and everywhere. I'll add the word bow hunting in all these clauses, something like that. And then you're away. The other thing, of course, that you must do once you've formed your branch is you must have a meeting, one meeting a year, an AGM, where you re-elect or elect your members. In new branches, of course, as I said, you'll probably have more meetings than that, because it'll take a lot of work to actually work out what you want to do, how you want to do it. At the same time, you will find people who will gravitate to you who are useful in the political process. I'm not pissing in Gary's pocket when I would say he's one of the best writers I've come across. He really can put it together. And Tony Alara, sitting there, is a businessman in the industry who has a fairly large database of people who are his customers. That is going to be useful to you. You should therefore be able to use methodologies like maybe his magazine to be able to get the word out, or his email string. So those sorts of people who can stand up in front of a camera. If you've got anybody in that you come along who can advocate for your bow hunting. So the next time we get the ABC or Channel 7 wanting to go out in the field with us, out on the trip, it may not be Robert Borsak slinging a rifle over his shoulder, it may be one of you or a family, mum and the 2 kids going bow hunting and showing, you don't show kill shots, we never do that on TV if we're smart, but showing what it's like to be bound to the fairly strict ethics that apply to bow hunters. Bow hunters are a little bit different from rifle hunters in some aspects. You know, if I've got a good enough rifle and I'm a good enough shot, I can kill an animal 400 or 500 metres away, maybe even longer. Shooting an animal at 400 or 500 metres is not really hunting, unless you're in the Brooks Range or somewhere like that where you can't get any closer anyway. One of my bow hunting heroes is Brett Verco. He's a spear fisherman these days, but I recall the angst in the Australian Deer Association in Victoria when Brett took 2 sambar kills in the one weekend. In fact, it was the one day. First of all, I think he was probably one of the first that had ever done a bow kill on a sambar deer, and he got 2 of them. So they were a bit amazed by that. Bow hunting, in its purest form, is no different from the young guys with the nasty looking dogs on the back and big knives on their hips. It is no different from the spear fisherman or spear fisherwoman. It is no different from the big game fisherman who hauls a fish in, sticks a tag in it, lets it go. No different from the fly fisherman who sight fishes, sight casts, looks for a fish, then hunts that fish. It is exactly the same. And one of the requirements of being in the political arena and advocating for your particular bent, which is bow hunting, you have to be aware that you are advocating for all hunters. We are and I'm not being sexist here, we are a brotherhood or a sisterhood. And that's the way you should view yourselves. If you view yourselves as just being aberrant individuals, then you'll never reclaim your place in society. One of the things we did have going for us as the shooters party way back when was John Tingle, a very urbane looking gentleman, extremely well spoken, looked like he wouldn't hurt a fly. He's a cold-blooded killer, by the way, but he looked like he wouldn't. And John was able to drag us up out of the 1996 mire of the Port Arthur murders, and we've done fairly well since. We've now learned how to fight a bit better politically. We've got a couple of us in this house. We've learned how to be nasty when we have to. And I got to say, hunters are a minority. Shooters are a minority. Fishermen are a less of a minority, but hunters, we really are in the minority, and bow hunters are in a minority of that minority. I've been a bow hunter myself. I belonged to Manly Warringah Field Archers for probably 3 or 4 years until the ABA chased me away. I was a pistol shooter for 10 years until the New South Wales Pistol Association chased me away. Why? Because they would not come to the understanding that we're all in it together. I think it was 1992, it might have been 1996 gun laws, I think. They refused to let pistol clubs march in the big march here with their banners because it doesn't affect them. They're an Olympic sport. The same way as AAA represents Olympic archers. The same way that over the years I observed the Australian Bowhunters Association. I'm not putting crap on them here. I was a member of it. Right? I just thought this is a waste of time. If you're a field archer or a target archer, an Olympic-style target archer, then even you, in this day and age, are going to start to come under scrutiny. When you see kangaroos shot, they're never shot with broadheads. They're always shot with target arrows. Some kid whose dad's given him a bow and arrow for Christmas that you can buy out of a retail shop for $50, and bang, a cat gets it, or a wallaby or something gets it. So target archers aren't immune either. So we come to the crux of it. What I'd like to do tonight, before maybe I might ask Peter Johnson. Peter, would you like to come up and just say a few words to advise these people what it takes to actually get and hold together a group of people who actually have to do a little bit of work, and the success of the fishing branch? As I say, Deputy Vice Chairman of the party, and probably in a couple of years he'll be the Chairman of the party, a fisherman, not a shooter.